Welcome to another episode of Footballers Only. I'm Mike.
I'm James Panay.
And we have a special guest.
I'm Biko Kujifi.
Nice. All right, Biko, let's just get right into it. Where does your football story begin?
Oh man, that's a deep question because I'm gonna have to say from the womb. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, some people on this earth, man, they grow up, they don't know what they want to do. They pull in all type of directions, but football was right there in the crib, And I would have to say, ever since I was walking, man, I luckily had my father around where I was following him around everywhere. And I started my journey right there at Malcolm X Park or Meridian Park. And I was playing with, I was a little bit too young at the time, but I was right there in Malcolm X Park. I was right off of Blair Road, playing with or watching the games of, TNT All-Stars, Jamaican Nats, Malcolm X Generals. The Bob Marley tournament that was, what was that? Was that at PG County school? That's pretty much where I came in. So my father from Trinidad, and I came up with that Caribbean perspective and that culture. So that's pretty much where football started for me.
Yeah. And so did you have older siblings?
No older siblings. I got one younger sister.
Okay.
And she also played as well.
Okay.
Actually did pretty well, actually, too. Played through high school. But I was the eldest.
Nice. So you had to set the standard. So so you started playing, at birth. And then at what point did you started to take it serious? At what age? Yeah.
Yeah. There were definitely moves that I was trying to make in and around in my high school years, but like I said, man, it's really kind of from the womb. Like, I honestly didn't really want anything else. You know what I mean? Growing up, it was really just about ball. Everything else was pretty much secondary. I did grow up in something of a conscious household, so I was very aware of what was happening out here, to our people specifically, which is, I'm glad about that, because that's kind of the work that I do now. But I would definitely say towards, my high school years is when I wanted to be on specific teams. I wanted to get to showcase tournaments, and I was just like, I gotta make these moves to get to this college, and I gotta make these moves to play for this team. And, so it was pretty much serious from ever since.
Yeah. Okay. So as a kid growing up, obviously your dad and probably uncles, etc., were people you look up to. But did you have other football idols?
Yeah, man. Definitely. I actually had when the World Cup was actually here in '94. I collected all of these cards, man, like all of these cards. And I had so many of these cards of all these players. Of course, R9, Ronaldo, looked up to him. But I have to say, one of my first was George Weah. It was George Weah. And again, that was something that, my dad put me on to, just him being, not only African Player of the Year, but World Player of the Year. You know what I mean? That was definitely one of the players I looked up to growing up. Definitely George Weah. I'm an Arsenal fan, right? I'm an Arsenal fan. So Dennis Bergkamp, hands down, scored the goal of the century. And I'd love to argue with anybody that wants to prove me wrong.
No, I've said it on here. I've said it on here that's one of the top goals of all time.
All right, hands down. But yeah, man. So guys like, man, George Weah, Ronaldo. To be honest, geez, man, I was even just having this conversation with my sons the other day. I was a huge Bayern fan, huge Bayern fan. So players like Lothar Matthäus, and that was like really looked up to him a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Nice. All right. So since you already started,
Yeah, we just go straight to it.
yeah, we have this question that we always ask, which is, who are your top 11 of all time?
Man, we have time for that. Man.
Okay, all right. So here's something else I have to say. It doesn't matter what you say, that people are going to get at you, right?
Yeah,
This is something like everybody have to get comfortable with. There's really no right answer and there's no wrong answer. You know what I mean? It's just your answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it could be you could do, it's up to you. You could do all forwards, you could do all goalies, all midfielders. It doesn't matter as long as that is 11. But your top 11 of all time.
Okay. I got you. Okay, well, I already mentioned George Weah. Got to get him on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really inspired by, it was probably like that 2012, 2013 Barcelona team. And Andres Iniesta, I mean, this guy is just the smoothest. I mean, and it's taking nothing away from any of the other players on that dream team. But Iniesta, man, I mean, I talk about him to my players a lot. Definitely R9, Ronaldo. I think, I mean, even just trying to describe him is as a striker, he's just so pure. I would definitely say Ronaldinho, because I think he's the epitome of what flair is. I mean, it's easy for me to say a lot of attackers because I growing up playing in attacking positions, I'm always looking at them. But I definitely have to give some respect to Franz Beckenbauer. I think, back in the day, I was put on to some of those older players and some of those older generals of the game. So I would say definitely Franz Beckenbauer.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one guy I got to drop on the list, my man Hector Cubillas. And this is a guy from Peru, just literally put his country on his back. So, got to put him up on there. Also, Eusebio from Portugal. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people know about Pelé, obviously, but I mean, Eusebio, man, I mean, he was really doing it. I'm not even sure what number I'm on right now. Maybe like
you're on 7. You're on 7.
Okay.
I'm gonna say you're the first person on here to name the Black Pearl, so you get extra points for that.
I enjoy my man George Weah. All right.
No. Black Pearl is Eusebio. Eusebio was the.
Oh no, you just said. Oh, I thought you said the first person. I said okay, yeah. And
no, this is George Weah home, man. So.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm Liberian and Nigerian, and James is Liberian. So, I mean, Weah is amongst the gods.
Yeah.
I mean, and now that you mentioned that, I mean, my son was just listening. He was just watching these highlights of. I mean, I can mention Okacha. Top 11 from all time. I don't know, but honorable mention.
All right, so we'll have Okacha as honorable mention. So you still have 7.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay. Gotta put Roberto Carlos on there, but either him or Marcelo, I think, are really interchangeable. To be honest, man, growing up, I really idolized Jorge Campos. Mm-hmm. I gotta throw a goalkeeper up on there because he could do it all. He could play. You know what I mean? And he had the gumption to come out and make something happen.
Yes, indeed.
Man, other favorite player. Let me see. I gotta say Henry. Definitely was a part of that Invincibles team that made me fall in love with Arsenal. So I gotta say that. And then I put I'm not sure what it is about Italy, but anywhere from Maldini to Alessandro Nesta, I feel like defenders wise, I mean, those guys were just, they kept things sewed up.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's a great list. I mean, yeah, that generation of Italian players,
Yeah.
from in Serie A as well.
Yeah, even that league.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
A question, right? So you said like, you grew up, like your father taught you the game and stuff like that. So I wonder, like growing up, especially for a young black man or black kid where soccer wasn't even popular, what is it like when you was playing soccer when you was young in DC or in the DC area? Was it like?
Man, that's a deep question, man, because with my father's influence, I already had like the culture, the Caribbean culture, and also part of the African American culture within the area. But my dad was coaching a lot, so I found myself on teams in McLean, and even when like the whole ODP things first came out, it was majority like these white privileged kids, and so that experience, and that was during some times when I was going through those adolescent years. So, I was experiencing different things, having different conversations, bunking and rooming with white players, and learning about them learning about me, and during those ages, you're growing and you're still learning yourself. So I could really only be myself, and I think a lot of those players learned from me. And I can even think back a couple of times. I mean, what in some of those ODP camps, I mean, we would actually in our rooms just have these discussions surrounding race. And, because we kind of realized that we were, these African-American kids with so many of these like white privileged kids around us. Like we knew that it was like we were different somehow, like somewhere in that area, in that sort of environment. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I had too many like bad experiences, but I definitely learned a lot just observing and just watching different players that I was playing with. So, yeah.
Did you growing up in your household, I take it you also when you visited Trinidad as well at times?
Oh yeah, for sure. The first time I went, I was probably maybe like, well, the first time I went, I didn't remember, but the next time I was like 6.
Okay. And so when you, obviously, the way it is back home is you go, that's what you do as a kid, right? You play ball, like you play the neighborhood, you play whatever it is. And so, and so you had this, vision, or, you could see in these different worlds, right? You visited Trinidad, and there's a certain culture of the game. And then in your household, there's a certain culture of the game, but outside of your household, there's the American, culture of the game, which is not much, there's not much football culture here. So how did you, did you notice there was a difference in, the way you and your family talk about football, and when you went back to Trinidad, as opposed to here? And if you notice it, how did you deal with the differences in, these different communities?
I mean, I think the differences was something that motivated me. Like I wanted people to know that I was all about football. I wanted people to know that I'm from here, but my family wasn't really from here. You know what I mean? So when I was in those situations, I would talk about it, pretty proudly, because I really wasn't one of those, especially like you mentioned, the culture here. I went to public school all the way up into high school, and like, with people, when they tell me like, well, they would just assume I'm either playing basketball or football or something like that. When I'm playing soccer, they're looking at me like, soccer, like, you know what I mean? So like, you know, these were differences that like I celebrated. I almost had like a chip on my shoulder, like, yeah, I play ball. You know what I mean? Like it was like something that I let sort of motivate me. And you know, part of those differences that I saw, especially as sometimes I was in teams where I was maybe the only Black player. I just noticed that it was just different for them. And it was that's what the American thing is, you know, like you got your white picket fence, the kids play soccer on the weekends, and then they go, you know, that's just life. You know what I mean? Like you go to practice, blah, blah, blah. But like for me in my household, this is like ball is life. Like that's what we do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's practice every day, or we in the park at Malcolm X Park every day. You know, games every weekend. You know, there's no off season. You know, even up at Tacoma Rec, you know, we're there playing with the elders. You know what I mean? So like I could see that, and I was something of a quiet. I was a little bit more chill. You know, I wasn't like super outgoing. So you know, I would just notice these differences. I would notice these differences in some of, you know, my peers, that for them it was like on the weekend, all right, we'll get back to regular life. For me, you know, this is what ball was. You know, this is what life was. It was just, you know, my father was coaching. You know, he coached at Bowie State University, he coached at Washington Soccer Club, Virginia ODP. I mean, high schools, like everywhere. So like I was following him around with him, and that's pretty much, you know, what it was. So that was really some of the biggest differences. I celebrated them. And then, you know, at times when I was just kind of at home, I would, you know, we didn't really have cable, but I could turn to channel 21, and there was a show called Football Mondial that would come on once a week, and that was the only kind of football that I could find on TV. There was no computers, no YouTube. It was Football Mondial, and I mean, it just, you know, I was just ecstatic. You know, anytime I saw football, soccer on TV at all, I was just like, man, this is great. You know.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of things. One is, so you didn't really watch a lot of games like as a kid?
My dad had a box of tapes, and those tapes were professional clubs from Trinidad. Some of them were, you know, old World Cup games from like the 70s and the 80s, something like the early 80s. Outside of that, I really couldn't just flick on the TV and find soccer. Yeah, really almost never. It really wasn't until I got older that I was able to just get like more access to it. But turning on the TV and just watching soccer outside of like Univision, you know, and Telemundo, I couldn't really find it that much. It's just what the old tapes that I have. I still have, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, those are classics. So the other question I was going to ask was, did you ever, you know, you mentioned your dad coached at all these different places, right? And as a child of a coach, did you ever play for your dad?
Yeah, quite a bit. I played on a couple occasions in Maryland. And this was out of first it was like a younger rec program out of Lanham, in Lanham, Maryland. And then there was another, it was just like an MSI team, I think, that we had. Then in McLean, which was like a travel team. But yeah, quite often I played like on his actual team.
Yeah. What was that? What was that experience like?
Looking back on it now, and then having sons of my own, right, I can kind of, you know, I can understand a little bit of why it was a little more harder on me. But you know, as a young man, you're looking for your father's approval. You know, you want him to, you know, give you that reinforced, you know, that approval that, you know, you're doing good. But he was on top of me. You know what I mean? He was like, you know, I remember at one particular time I missed a penalty. At the end of the game, he said that that was the worst penalty that he had ever seen. And I was like, damn, man, like, I felt was, you're crushed at that point. But typical, that was a typical thing. You hear that, with the father-son relationship, he was hard on me, but at the same time, we had a lot of those good times, you know what I mean? Just in the park, me watching him play. We actually had got the chance to play together in the I don't even know if the Bob Marley tournament still happens.
I don't think they do it anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like we played together, not on TNT All-Stars, but on it was one other team called the Angelics, which was out of Andrews Air Force Base. So playing under him was also one thing, but then with him was kind of like, a new sort of like a good thing too.
Yeah. Oh, so with that experience in mind, how are you approaching your boys with the game?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is a little different, but at the same time, I'm careful to maintain that balance where I'm not, too pushy or like too like overly, on top of them so that they don't want to play. And at the exact same time, they're very young. I mean, my oldest just turned 10, and then my youngest will be 8 in May. So I'm very much letting them gravitate towards the game, and it's happening naturally. They got a tournament coming up this weekend that they can't stop talking about. So and then so it's been good getting them to other training sessions, other coaches coaching them. But I mean, just as a father speaking, it's just been an absolute joy. I mean, we go to the court, we call it to the court, and we play 2v1, 1v1, and we just go at it. And those are things that, they're building those skills at the very same time. And I'm going to put it on the plate for them. Like, hey, look, just kind of like that question that you threw out, when it's time to say, this is serious, then, we'll, it's go time.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned ODP, right? How was that experience like? And then did you play any do you have any other experience outside of ODP?
Yeah, definitely. For ODP, I mean, I can't really say anything about ODP without thanking my mother, really, because she really like penny pinched to put me through that ridiculously expensive program that didn't need to be all that expensive. Even some of all the trips I kind of missed out on. I mean, I remember at one point in time, we were supposed to go to Italy and Scotland, but I mean, I wasn't really able to go. I even, went around to different businesses, like, looking for sponsorships and like, things like that to help pay for those things because it was so expensive. Yeah. The experience was good. It was a higher level of play. It definitely gathered a lot of the, some top players, I think there was still plenty of talent to be had, and ODP kind of X'd a lot of those players out because of how expensive it really was. But nevertheless, some top players that I think that definitely continued on and played. And throughout that, even throughout high school, I did play for DC United. This was probably one of their first academy teams they started putting together. And this was from their U17s through their U19s. And that was a really, really awesome experience. We got to play in some top showcase tournaments that I was really, really excited about. And, that's one of the serious moves that I really wanted to take so that I could get looks from colleges and other professional coaches. Outside of that, I did play for the Northern Virginia Royals, which was a U23 team for a while. We were up on tour up and down the East Coast. That was an awesome experience. And then there was an expansion team of that Crystal Palace team that was here in Baltimore for some time. And I never signed a contract with them or anything like that, but I did train with them for a better part of the season. And even that was just an awesome experience, just playing with, those players and just watching different players come in and out of that team from overseas, local, from across the country. So just being a part of that was really, really awesome. And then I guess a little bit later on, I played in the Washington Premier League with different teams.
We played
as
again.
well. Yeah. I know you remember that. I know you remember that. But so, and even that, man, was just like, I just love being in that atmosphere where players are around each other, pushing each other, and they're trying to get to top level,
Yeah.
Cool.
So where are you now in your football journey?
Well, I've been coaching for the past 10 years. So coaching and, some of the licenses that I've been able to acquire has turned into a career. I was just actually having this conversation with some good friends of mine that I've grown up playing soccer with. That's really how I got into coaching, because the atmosphere was to coach with them. And we were able to create the atmosphere that we had that really nurtured creativity and skill. So it's been awesome being a part of that the past 10 years. And then, having my sons also see that. But by no means am I done. I mean, I'm the type that's to the wheels fall off, if you will. Now, I'm still mending a couple injuries here and there, man, but I'm hoping over the next few months, if things could, if things progress, I'm right back out there, man. I mean, futsal, even the club where I coach right now, they have a pretty solid funnel into a professional team and even professional futsal team. So, I'm just getting off the injury list, man. I'm 35 now. I'll be 36. So, I'm gonna keep going till the wheels fall off.
Nice.
All right.
So what would you say is the most challenging thing in where you are right now, right? So you're in these two worlds, you're a coach and you're a player on the injury reserve list. What would you say is the most challenging?
I mean, it is always a challenge, because at heart, like I'm a player, you want to play. So, that's always a challenge, because, you just want to play, you know what I mean? But, as you get older, obviously I got my two sons, I've built a career teaching in Montgomery County public schools. And it's like, you're constantly faced with this work-life balance. So you would like to, sometimes just drop everything and just go play or do what you want to do. But oftentimes it's not quite like that. But at the same time, you kind of learn to embrace that and enjoy that, because that's what challenges do. Challenges, they make you stronger, they grow you, and they show you new things about yourself. So, it is challenging in one sense, where I'd like to be, more active than I am now, but, it definitely slows you down sometimes and speaks to you. And, then you learn more about the game.
Mm-hmm. But with that being said, though, what do football mean to you? If you have to describe football, what does it mean to you?
Oh man, to me, football for me is love, it's connection. It's just pure enjoyment, you know what I mean? Because football has connected me with so many people, just so many people. And even to this day, like, if I'm somewhere, whether I'm coaching in a game or if I'm just, I was in the mall the other day with my sons, and I stopped and chopped it up with a guy that I played indoor with, and I'm telling my guys, my sons, like, I used to play with him. That's a baller right there. You know what I mean? And it's just when you sit back and think about all the connections, you know what I mean, that is created. It's just you can't help but to be thankful am blessed to be a part of it, especially in this area, close-knit area too. Like, you know, I didn't really know you guys personally, but if I saw your faces, I knew that we were connected through ball at some point in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love that. I love having that feeling. I love seeing that. That's the awesome feeling for me.
Yeah. What would you say is your worst mistake either as a player or as a coach?
Man, worst mistake. I think when I was younger, maybe in my earlier 20s, I probably made some of the similar mistakes of a lot of 20-year-olds. I was super passionate about the game, but was probably part-time in the time that I wanted to actually dedicate to it. And I got by a lot just on pure talent, and I didn't really focus as much as I could have. And I was very much caught up with, you know, just being young, man. I was trying to go to park and love and dream. And, you know, I was trying to get this chick's number and, you know, this girlfriend, that girlfriend, you know, those things you can look back on and see how much of that they're distractions. But again, you learn from it, you grow from it. So, you know, looking back, you know, I would say there was a few mistakes, not just being more focused on, you know, that ball life. You know what I mean? Because if that's what it was, you know, I would have just said, I would have packed up my bags and head to this city and see what's up. Head to the next city, see what's up. Head to the next city and see what's up. And be, you know, and live that football in life. But, you know, I was distracted with other things, and I entertained those distractions. Coaching, you know, at one point in time, as I really started getting into coaching, especially the club where I'm at now, I definitely gave a lot of energy to, you know, getting licenses and things like that. And I think they're good. You can learn a lot from them, create more connections. But, I mean, ball is really here. So when you're coaching, you really have to emanate that. And you can't be too focused on the national, you know, B, C, you know. I mean, they're really good. Believe me, I'm not hating on any of that. But, like, if you can't bring your authenticity to it, those licenses mean nothing. You know, they mean nothing. So as a coach, I think at one point in time when I first got into it, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I got to get this, I got to get that, I got to get caught up. Like, this is what this coaching thing is all about. And it's really not. You know what I mean? Like, it is part of the game, just like in any career. But I would advise coaches not to get too caught up in it. You know what I mean? If you're dedicated here and you can give that passion and commitment to your players, you can create something beneficial for them, for sure.
Yeah, well said. You've been coaching for 10 years now, so you have some experience seeing coaches worldwide. Who would you say is in your top 5?
Well, like I said, I mentioned Pep's team from Barca, and I don't know if you guys saw, but I think I'm not sure where it came out. I mean, Pep is with City now, but it was like the documentary following him around with Man City. I think it came out on like Prime Video or something. Kind of took you into his locker room a little bit, but even before that, I could tell that Pep's, like, his dedication and his love for his players. I mean, that's how he levels players up. You know, just what he demands from them and just how intense he is. And that's something that I definitely learned from, because if you bring that intensity to your players, then they'll bring that to the field. Man, other coaches, you know, to be honest, I followed Zidorf's campaign when he got to AC Milan for a short bit. I don't think they did him right. But I do think that he definitely embodied in his team what he was as a player, and just that strong, solidified player. And so I think that, he impressed me with what he did during that little bit of time. I tried my best to follow some of the interviews and, you know, the post games and just the matches in general. But definitely say I would look up to him. Well, I mean, I got to shout out Arsene Wenger, because that's, you know, if for anybody to create an invincible team, you gotta be a bad dude, man. I mean, you have to, because I think his eye was just so keen, and I think his tactics and his strategies were just, you know, were so him, but they were also very creative, you know, to be pretty competitive in such a top league. You know, so everything from their training regimen to their diet, you know, where they trained and in the off seasons and the environments that he put them in to make his team more cohesive. Definitely him. Other coaches.
Yeah, is that 3, right?
Yeah,
you said 5?
Yeah, 2 more.
Let me see. I would probably have to look into that a little bit more. I will say, and just thinking off the top, I was really, really impressed with what Tuchel did at Dortmund. So this was before PSG and before Chelsea now, obviously. I think that he had that Dortmund team at such a competitive pace that it was just electric. And I was really, really impressed with him there. And
Yes.
and I'll be honest, I mean, Rijkaard, he sticks out to me because I was always a fan of Dutch football, and then what he was able to do at Barcelona as well. But I can say that I feel like there's still a lot that I could learn from his campaign there at Barcelona too. But I do remember thinking back fondly on Rijkaard being at Barcelona and what he was able to do.
Yeah, that's a top list, but you forgot my boy Jose. But it's okay.
But here's what I would say: honorable mention. So I'll say that I would say Mourinho, because, and I'm actually one, if we sitting down and we having a conversation, I will defend Mourinho. I wouldn't bash him. I wouldn't talk about him parking the bus and all of that. And it's because I had the opportunity of seeing. I tried to follow him specifically when he was at Chelsea. And if you looked at some of the interviews, and these are in articles, interviews from his players personally, and the way they would talk about him.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so emotionally attached to him that I'm like, that's how you get players to win. That's how you get players to win, because he created such a strong connection. I even think they did him dirty at Manchester. You know what I mean? Like, I think he should have stayed. He should have been there. He shouldn't have got rid of him. Yeah, maybe they was going through something of a slump. But if that's a top team, give him the players that he wants. Let him create those bonds and those relationships. And, I mean, you know, Mourinho, top coach. And I think that if Tottenham treats him right, you're going to see a surge. You're going to see a surge in Tottenham. So, you know, I guess I left him out of that list. But, I'll never bash Mourinho.
Okay, so quick question. You mentioned Seedorf as a coach, but you didn't mention him as a player.
So, I mean, Seedorf, I mean, you know, again, I could put together a whole nother, you know, list.
I was just wondering, because usually, like, you know, like for me, for instance, right? If I say, so Don is one of my favorite players, all right?
Yeah.
But he's also one of my favorite coaches as well. And of course, you know, people have all this stuff to say about Zidane as a coach, etc. You know, he has the dream teams and all this. But of course, I study him, so I can argue against whatever they have to say. And so the fact that you named Cito, as your top 5 coach, I was surprised that you didn't mention him as one of your players as well. So that's
Yeah, no, I feel you. And I mean, to be honest, well, a couple of these players weren't coaches, but I mean, I could definitely put Makalele on there. You know, he's not a coach, but there's a couple of players I probably could have mentioned as well. But I was able to follow Zito just for a little bit of the time there, and I was really, really impressed. So, you know, had to throw him up there.
Nice.
So how you mentioned all those coaches, right? So you as a coach, what is your tactics? How do you get your players like prepared for a season or a game?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is the mental part.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the mental part, and that's all the energy that I bring to the field. You know, when I prep my team for a particular season, you know, it doesn't really matter, you know, who it is or what level they are. I'm letting them know that, like, we're going for the top. You know, we're going to win this league, and we're going to be competitive, because part of my job is to bring that competitive nature out of them, you know, to really get the best results out on the field. And you know, that's something of the team perspective. And then I also, you know, create all these individual relationships where, you know, I basically lay it out to players like, look, you know, I'm not here just to have you play or put you as a 9 because you're super fast. You know what I mean? I want you to raise your level up. Like, I'm not here to use you here. You're here at the end of the season. I want you to be here. And then maybe another season, and I want you to be here. So I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to put you in other positions. I'm going to make you use your weak foot. And at times, those are things that I've seen that, like, they kind of scare players a little bit, especially because a lot of the players that I coach are actually from, like, that community that I was mentioning where, like, you know, we just sort of do this on the weekends, and then, you know, we go home. You know, it's not like life for them. So at times that's kind of a challenge too, because, you know, I speak as from what my experience was, and I couldn't wait to get back to practice. I couldn't wait to get back to training. But sometimes, you know, I may have groups that, you know, this is just what they do on the weekend. They're probably going to go play basketball and then violin. And then after that, if they get back to soccer practice, if they make it back in time from their vacation in the Bahamas, then they'll come to the tournament. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'll speak my piece to some of these players, but, you know, I'm careful on how exactly I'm going to motivate them. You know what I mean? But you know, I get them to be creative and express themselves and just have fun. You know, have fun on the ball, have fun with each other, have fun at training. And, you know, there's one particular group that I've had for the past 3 years now, and they're really getting that. We really have that really fun atmosphere. When you create that atmosphere, you see players start to express themselves in ways that they hadn't before. And that's a joy as a coach to see that.
Yeah. What do you think you do differently than other coaches?
Differently than other coaches, hard to say. I mean, and to be honest, even as an educator, one things that we do in the classroom is we get a lot from each other. So I mean, well, a lot of things that I do sometimes on the field, I get from other coaches. I mean, you know, even sometimes when I'm seeing you guys playing and coaching, you know, I've been to your training sessions. I'm just picking up little stuff here and there. Maybe it's something for a drill. Maybe it's the way you address the team. So, you know, I have what I bring, but I also, you know, learn from other coaches. But as far as maybe a complete distinction, I did notice at a couple of, I remember at one particular club where I was coaching at Maryland United at one particular time, I was excited to move players around and get them out of their comfort zones. And I specifically saw one player. I was like, you could be a really good central midfielder. Wasn't really the strongest or the fastest. So it was a little risky right in the center of the pitch. But I put her in there. And, you know, I think a lot of the other coaches you know, they probably looked at that like, you just need to put your strongest team out there, and then that's it. Like, that's how you need to rearrange your team. And, you know, I remember having some conversations like, look, you know, we're playing, I think it was a U11 team. I'm like, yo, I don't care about winning the U11 World Cup. You know, I'm trying to develop this young midfielder that I have. And, you know, I think actually she's playing in high school now, which has actually been a joy. I mean, there's several players that I've coached that are going into college now. It's been really, really awesome. But I do distinctly remember at some particular clubs where, you know, I wasn't just there picking the top players, putting them in the top positions, and let's go win a tournament. Like, you know, if I got a player that I think you're going to be good in the center midfield, you might miss a ball or two. You know, you might not win this tackle, but, you know, you're going to be exposed to a new position, new touches that you got to do, you know, everything just in that position. So I'm not really afraid to do that, even if it means we lose the game. You know, that doesn't mean that if I'm coaching, you know, if this is U17 State Cup, we're going for the cup. You know what I mean? But if this is U11, specifically U9 to U12 in those developmental ages, you know, I'm moving players around. I'm moving them around constantly. So that's one thing that I like to do.
So, you know, given what you just said, how do you communicate this piece to both the players, parents, and, you know, if you're coaching at a club or whatever, obviously the management and the DC, how do you communicate this to them, especially given that, you know, this is not something that's a big part of the football culture here in America, right? It's just focused on winning, you know, like you said, winning the U11 World Cup. So that's actually a hilarious concept.
I mean, that's what some of these folks really think that's what it is, though. Really,
I know. I can see a cartoon. Like, maybe it's something we need to work on. Develop a cartoon for the U11 World Cup.
If you can make it a sketch comedy, the U11 World Cup, man, that I'll be dying laughing. I'll help you produce it.
But so how do you communicate this to everyone? You know, even like I said, the player, the parents, the other coaches within the club, the DC, etc. How do you manage that? You know, that communication thread.
Yeah, and the communication piece is definitely important, especially with some of those parents, because a lot of the clubs where I've been, you definitely get that push where you want to make sure the parents are comfortable and they feel like they're being communicated with. So that's definitely been something of an art that I've had to develop. But when it comes to me, getting players to express themselves, moving them and getting them ready for that, if I tell my son, if they're playing their tablet on their video game, all right, it's time to get off, and I just go and snatch it away, they're going to be like, whoa, what? You know what I mean? But if I prepare them like, yo, time's ticking, you know what I mean? Then they're a little bit more receptive to it. So when I have my teams, part of prepping in the preseason is prepping their minds for that. And I'm like, look, be ready for this. It is coming. I'm going to move you around. And you'd be surprised at just how much that, players begin to sort of ease their stress levels, knowing that, they're going to be moved around. They're going to get put in, different positions, uncomfortable positions. And then they become more receptive to it because they realize that once they get into these other positions, they're like, oh yeah, I can do this, right? Yeah, I'm good. I can try something else too. And the next thing you know, they're welcoming it. And, if they're welcoming it, they're like, oh, look, mom, dad, I just played the 9 today. I almost scored. And, parents are like, you did, we'll pay more money, go back. You know what I mean? And clubs are going to love that. You know what I mean? So it's really a mental thing. I prep I prep them early. And I sort of frame it to them in a way that's going to motivate them. Like, look, just because you've been playing, whatever coach told you were just fast and you've been stopping everybody, so you're going to be in defense this whole time, doesn't mean you have to stay there. You know what I mean? Like, you can push up, you can attack, you can use your 1v1, you can dribble here. And the one part that I pitch to parents that really I think is effective is that, and you guys know as coaches, when you're evaluating players, you can look at hundreds of players and not one of them stick out. And what's going to make them stick out is, mentally what they're able to do in the game and their confidence. So when I tell players that, I'm going to move you around and they get confident in other positions, now when they go to a showcase game or even just a high school tryout, the coach notices something different about that player. And it may be when they decided to take a player on. It may be how they decided to take a player on. It may be how the coach and during the tryout, they were a defense, but then by the end of the tryout, they were playing an 11. And they're like, man, wait a minute, this player, we got to get this player. So parents then can see, like, look, your child, if you're serious about this, you want to play college and professional, you want your child to be more marketable. If you have your child as a player that's a robot, like hundreds of other players, sure, they might have fantastic first touch. They may be able to ping a ball from here all the way to the attacking third, right? But so what? A lot of other players can do that. So when I preach that creativity piece and getting them out of their comfort zones, it's sort of connected with that. And I get parents and players on board with the fact that, look, if you're serious about this, you are going to need to stick out in some sort of way. You're going to need to impress a coach in some sort of way. And realistically speaking, I don't get everybody. I'm probably only going to get a small percentage of that group that are really hearing me and that are actually going to take it to that level. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? If that means that they get picked for that college scholarship or ODP or overseas or whatever it is, the best of luck to them.
What's your ultimate goal you're both, right? So you're still dreaming of coming back from injury and playing. So what's your ultimate goal, first as a coach and then as a footballer?
Well, I really enjoy a lot of different sides of coaching. I enjoy coaching at that competitive level where it's so cutthroat that it's like there's no room for anything else. Like, we're going for the cup and that's it. So I definitely want, to experience more sides where I'm at that competitive level, and reaching as high as I can possibly get, whether that be state cup, regional, national, and this is in futsal, outdoors, whatever it may be. But, I'm also still very passionate about that developmental stage. At the earlier stages, especially now as my two sons are very young. So I'm very much dedicated to that. And then I do have a long-term goal of eventually just becoming a scout, because I think that there's something it's almost like an art in itself to really evaluate players and really see talent, even if it's not all the way cultivated yet. And being able to almost kind of plant a seed in a player, like, I like what you're doing, and then watch them grow. So I would love to be a scout in that sort of in that perspective. And then playing wise, like I said, I'm to the wheels fall off. So I'm always going to be playing to some extent. But I do believe that my sons, when they watch me, they're already watching and copying many things that I do, just almost verbatim, because they watch me, they follow me. So I'll continue to push myself and to the highest level that I could possibly get, purely for them. It would be awesome for me, but I'm okay with that. But it doesn't have to be that way. But I think it's it almost feels like a duty, you know, as they're still watching me, to continue pushing myself, you know, as much as I can for them to see.
It's great. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'll say, our last question, what is your most memorable moment as a player?
Memorable moment as a player. It's involving a goal. I just got to pick one. I would have to say that it was, I believe it was like a tournament match. This was probably like U11, maybe like U11, U12. And playing with players that I still communicate with, you guys know. And, you know, I think the context of it was that we needed to win. So, you know, it was very high stakes. But the reason why it was so memorable was that when I scored, I mean, like the feeling, like the elatedness that I got from scoring that goal was just like none other. You know what I mean? Like, it's just almost as if like when you see a game, or if you're even at the stadium and they score a goal and then the stadium literally erupts. Yeah. Like, you know, you can just imagine the eruption of that actual player. Yeah. And, you know, there's no one in the stands, the parents were around, but when I scored that goal, I mean, my body was just like, I was just like, you know, it was just an incredible feeling. So, yeah, I would have to say that was probably my most memorable moment. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Maybe we'll use that in the U11 World Cup. Yeah, that could be like that could be how it ends. You know what I mean? Like, you scored.
Yo, I did something with my arms. I did something with my arms where I was just like, I couldn't control the energy that was in me, and I was just that excited, man. But you know, it would be awesome to capture that.
So how can people get in touch with you? Any social media handles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely Coach_Biko. I think I've had that handle for the past couple of years now, and I use that usually just posting things with the teams that I'm coaching or coaching with my sons. I'll probably be posting some stuff this weekend with my sons getting ready to play. You know, my email has probably been the same for the past 10 or so years, bkujifi@gmail.com. And yeah, man, that's it. Anybody want to get in contact, you know, anytime. I'm always down to talk football.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. And, you know, we enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
For Mike, pretty appreciate you guys, man.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, man. Talk to y'all.